How have they been affected?
They talk to the walls.
And what did they say?
It'll get better. Promise.
Mama is imagined as a deeply unsettling psychological horror film that explores the primal bonds of motherhood, the nature of protection and the thin line between love and obsession. Rather than relying solely on jump scares and spectacle, the story leans into emotional tension, atmospheric dread, and the idea that the things we fear most are often those we cannot fully understand or control. The horror in this imagined version of Mama arises from the collision of human vulnerability and forces that defy explanation, making the audience question what is real, what is imagined, and what lies just beyond ordinary perception. The story begins with two young sisters whose lives are shattered by a sudden and tragic loss. Abandoned in a remote forest after a series of chaotic events, they survive through sheer instinct, clinging to each other for comfort and safety. Time passes in ways that are difficult to measure, days, weeks, perhaps months, and during this period, they are not truly alone. A presence silently watches over them, moving in the shadows, whispering in the dark, and offering a kind of twisted guardianship. This presence becomes known to them simply as Mama, a figure whose intentions are ambiguous but whose influence cannot be denied. When the girls are finally discovered and brought back into civilization, they carry with them a connection to Mama that defies explanation. They do not speak of fear or abandonment, but of safety and companionship, insisting that Mama protected them when no one else did. Their rescuers, both skeptical and disturbed, struggle to reconcile the girls' innocence with the strange and disturbing clues that follow them home. Objects move inexplicably, whispers echo through empty rooms, and the girls sometimes speak in voices that are not their own. These incidents are subtle at first, a lullaby heard without a source, a rocking chair that moves though no one sits in it, but they grow increasingly impossible to dismiss. The emotional core of the story lies in the girls' refusal to let go of their belief that Mama is benevolent. To them, she is a guardian figure who shielded them from the dangers of the world, and they resist any attempt to separate them from her memory. Their adoptive family, loving but unfamiliar with true loss, struggles to provide the sense of safety the girls crave. This creates a tension that is both heartbreaking and terrifying. The audience understands that the girls are victims of extraordinary trauma. Yet they also sense that Mama's presence is neither purely protective nor purely evil. Instead, she exists in a liminal space where love and fear are indistinguishable. As the story unfolds, the adoptive parents try to piece together the truth behind Mama's origin. They discover fragments of local folklore, whispered stories of spirits born from grief and rage, of entities that attach themselves to those in need and refuse to let them go. Some villagers hint that Mama was once a real woman who lost everything, her sorrow twisting into something beyond mortality. Others suggest she is something older, a force tied to the land itself, drawn to the vulnerability of abandoned children. The ambiguity of these accounts deepens the horror, making it unclear whether Mama is a ghost, a manifestation, or something even more primal. The tension escalates as Mama's presence becomes more pronounced. The girls display behaviors that are both charming and unsettling. They play games with unseen partners, speak of secret paths in the forest, and occasionally adopt tones that are eerily adult or otherworldly. Objects in the house shift without explanation. Lights flicker in patterns that mimic lullabies, and shadows gather in corners even in broad daylight. The adoptive parents experience these phenomena directly, and their skepticism turns to fear as they realize that removing the girls from Mama's influence is not simply a matter of physical distance. Mama's influence is psychological as much as supernatural. She does not lash out with violence immediately. Instead, she builds a sense of dependency, blurring the line between comfort and captivity. The girls begin to see their new family as a threat, not because they are unloving, but because they cannot replace the primal bond formed in the wilderness. This tension is the heart of the horror, a love that refuses to release its hold, even when it destroys everything around it. At pivotal moments, the film uses silence and absence to create dread. A room suddenly quiets as if sound itself avoids it. Footsteps approach when no one is there. A lullaby, once comforting, becomes a signal of looming danger. These moments are not cheap scares, but emotional triggers that make the audience feel the character's isolation and helplessness. The horror becomes internalized, as the adoptive parents begin to doubt their own sanity while trying to protect the children they have grown to love. The emotional stakes rise when Mama's intentions become less guarded and more possessive. The children, caught between two worlds, the familiar and the uncanny, must confront the truth of their bond with Mama. Are they embracing her out of love, fear, or the deep imprint of survival instinct? Is Mama's influence a curse or a reflection of their own unresolved trauma? These questions pull the narrative away from simple horror into deeper psychological terrain, making the audience confront their own fears about attachment, loss, and the parts of ourselves that refuse to be healed. The climax of the story arrives not in an explosion of violence, but in a moment of emotional reckoning. The adoptive parents, realizing that simply removing the girls will not sever Mama's hold, attempt a ritual of closure, a symbolic act that honors the girl's past while inviting Mama to let go. This confrontation is tense and heartbreaking, forcing each character to acknowledge their pain, fear, and love in raw terms. The atmosphere is thick with tension as unseen forces respond, not with malice alone, but with sorrow and longing. In the final moments, the story reaches an ambiguous resolution that feels both haunting and humane. Mama's presence recedes, leaving behind silence and memory rather than rubble and screams. The girls are free in body, but the emotional imprint remains. They carry Mama in their hearts, not as a ghost pursuing them, but as a reminder of what they endured and what they survived. The adoptive parents, changed by their ordeal, understand that love can persist even in absence, and that healing is not about forgetting, but about carrying memory with strength rather than fear. The imagined release of Mama positions it as a deeply affecting horror film that resonates beyond the genre's usual thrills. It is a story about loss, attachment, and the unseen forces that shape us, forces that may not be malevolent, but are powerful enough to upend lives and redefine what it means to belong. The film leaves audiences unsettled not because it shows what goes bump in the night, but because it makes them think about the moments in their own lives where love and fear were intertwined, and where letting go was both necessary and unbearably painful. Overall, Mama is imagined as a haunting meditation on the bonds that refuse to die, the echoes of trauma that follow long after danger has passed, and the idea that love, when twisted by grief, can become one of the most terrifying forces of all. This is horror not just as fear, but as empathy experienced in its most raw and unguarded form, leaving the audience with much more than a story of ghosts, leaving them with a story about what it means to truly hold on, and what it means to finally let go. Here's a fully YouTube-ready SEO-optimized package for your Mama movie script, title, long description with natural emoji use and tags all crafted in English and designed to perform well. You can copy-paste this directly into your upload.